But when President Obama announced the deaths, he told this story.
Our initial assessment indicates that this operation was fully consistent with the guidelines under which we conduct counterterrorism efforts in the region, which has been our focus for years because it is the home of al-Qaeda's leadership.
General Jack Keane is a retired four-star general and chairman of the Institute for the Study of War, and he is a Fox News military analyst. General, welcome. Good to have you here today.
Good to be here, Melissa.
What's the revelation here about the way things are done?
Well, I think what actually happened is in 2013, due to some criticism of the drone program back then, largely within the president's own party, he made some changes to the program. He established that when it came to the target itself, you had to have, quote, near certainty that no civilians were involved. And then number two, the second change was you had to make certain that the target itself was a direct threat to the United States, and it had to be an imminent threat. And that is what drives the drone program to date. However, and what this story is about, is that he made an exception to those rules for Pakistan, because that is where the al-Qaeda is present. The near certainty in terms of the target for civilians stays in the program at Pakistan. However, he did not apply the restriction on it had to be a direct threat to the United States. And what that means on the ground, Martha, is that a pattern of behavior at the target area that indicates that they are in fact terrorists is sufficient to be able to target it. You don't have to know which terrorists are there or whether there is in fact a high-value target leader present there.
And that's why we've learned a lot of details about this operation. They used heat-seeking technology, and they felt that there were 4 human beings in that location. And then when the dead were pulled out, there turned out to be 6. And they think now that Warren Weinstein and Giovanni Laporto may have been in tunnels or may have been underground in this operation. Very tragic outcome, obviously. But there's a lot of dispute also, General, over whether or not the CIA should be carrying out these operations or the U.S. military should be the lead on these decisions when the president is not directly involved. What do you think about that?
Well, prior to 9/11, the CIA really didn't do this kind of work, sort of paramilitary work. And there has been some discussion, not initially post 9/11, because we were all caught up in the throes of post 9/11 and the activity around al-Qaeda. But upon reflection, there is a thought that the paramilitary operation of the Central Intelligence Agency, particularly as it applies to drones, should be given to the United States military, which has a very large drone program itself, used mostly in support of its own troops on the ground, but also a classified program that our Joint Special Operations Command executes in Yemen and also in Somalia. And that's where the discussion lies. Should it be moved in that direction of the United States military and get this out of the hands of the CIA? I think one of the reluctant reasons to move it is that there's been a center established in the Central Intelligence Agency for years now. We have highly skilled operators there and analysts and supervisors. These are the people who tracked down Osama bin Laden. There's a lot of confidence in them. Yeah. And the fact of the matter is many of those stay on those jobs much longer than the military operators stay on their jobs.
Yeah, very interesting. In terms of the decision to disclose the fact that this was a CIA operation, apparently Samantha Power and Ben Rhodes were arguing that transparency was the best motivation and that it should be revealed. And CIA, according to these reports in the Wall Street Journal, was not too happy about that decision.
Yeah, I think that's probably an accurate report. That certainly all of our operations, the more you talk about it, the reality is the more the enemy is able to put in mechanisms to prevent us from being successful. And so from their perspective, from the Department of Defense perspective, they would rather not talk about these things. But also, you can also, from the perspective of what took place here, that 2 civilians were killed, despite the extraordinary efforts that took place to prevent anything like that happening, as you pointed out, going as far as putting heat seekers, drones in there to make certain there was no people in there. At least nobody beyond the 4 that they thought were in there. I think this tension inside our government actually is a good thing, not a bad thing, and they should argue over something like this. And this is America. Transparency is important here, but I also understand, why the Central Intelligence Agency wants to protect how they do things and what they do for the success of future operations.
Yeah.